Sometimes I'm gaining, then again I'm losing. Sometimes I'm rising, yes sir. Then again I'm falling. Sometimes I'm gaining, then again I'm losing. Sometimes I'm rising, yes sir. Then again I'm falling. Let Jesus work it out. Please, your Father would work it out. Oh, let God work it out. Please, your Father would work it out. Oh, let God work it out. Please, your Father would work it out. Oh, let God work it out. Oh, work it out. You work it out for Mother Lisa. Sometimes I'm gaining, then again I'm losing. Sometimes I'm rising, yes sir. Then again I'm falling. Sometimes I'm gaining, then again I'm losing. Sometimes I'm rising, yes sir. Then again I'm falling. Let Jesus work it out. Please, your Father would work it out. Oh, let God work it out. Please, your Father would work it out. Oh, let God work it out. Please, your Father would work it out. Oh, let God work it out. Oh, work it out. You work it out for Mother Lisa.
All right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Dr. David Patrick Harry with Church of the Eternal Logos. And today we're going to be diving into kind of an interesting topic we really don't address too much on here. We're going to be talking a lot about race today, and specifically in the American context. And we're going to be diving into the cultural phenomenon of Sydney Sweeney's American Eagle ads and how that relates with what I'm seeing as a larger cultural shift here. And so today is not just focusing on the American Eagle and, genes, genetics versus genes and all this. We're just going to take this as a snippet to look at really what I'm perceiving as a larger phenomenon in American culture. And so let me lay out a little bit about what this phenomenon is. So you guys are probably aware, and we're going to cover this in all details. It's going to be a fun stream today, guys. So this is going to be a fun stream. Sit back. We're going to be having a really good time today. It's going to be not a super heady stream, but my goal is to bring a little bit of a sophisticated analysis to what's going on. And so what's the phenomenon that I'm even talking about? So you guys know about Sydney Sweeney, the blonde actress, well endowed, big breasts. She's kind of a meme online of sort of white, right wing American culture and this stuff. Well, American Eagle did an advertisement, which we're going to watch here in a little bit, talking about how Sydney Sweeney has great genes. Great genes is a wordplay on her genetics by having blonde hair and blue eyes. And of course, her wearing American Eagle jeans. Now, this has sparked a huge outrage. It's considered Nazi propaganda. It's a sort of dog whistle to what, again, some people are claiming, as you'll see today, is eugenics, white eugenics. And I want to connect this with the larger phenomenon of white athletes and kind of white culture in America. And now I'm not going to be making to avoid any violation of potential TOS or anything like that. I'm not making any claims or supporting anything. My goal today is actually present a sort of third-party objective perspective on Sydney Sweeney and its relationship to things that you've seen probably going viral on TikTok and X, are called these sorority rush dances, where you see basically all white girls doing choreographied dance, and kind of doing rush, trying to get more girls to sign up their sorority and stuff like that. Now, again, it's pretty cringy. It's pretty cringy, but what does it represent? And how does this then, what I'm seeing, relate with like the Caitlin Clark phenomenon? Caitlin Clark, if you guys aren't familiar, is a white female professional basketball player. And she's from Iowa, and she's heterosexual. She has a boyfriend, I think fiance now. They may be married. I think it's her fiance. He actually works for the Indiana Pacers. So I'm in Indiana, and Indiana is actually going to come up quite a bit in today's conversation, because we're going to be talking about white identity and its presence in general pop culture. Sydney Sweeney represents that. The sorority girls kind of represent that. Caitlin Clark is, again, this astounding for a female basketball player. She has a very exciting style. She shoots deep threes, very aggressive, and just overall very talented. And she set the overall scoring record for women in college basketball at the University of Iowa, where she's from the state of Iowa. Now, she receives incredible amount of hate, being really the poster child for the WNBA. The WNBA, since she joined last summer, has seen a skyrocketing in views and money, exposure, contracts for players, advertisement deals, this type of stuff. But yet the league itself doesn't seem to really like Caitlin Clark. And this is what, again, from me as a third party, is not just her and the other players on the court. Clearly, the other black girls do not like her. And this is now a very prominent trend for the last 2 seasons, is that the WNBA, if you aren't aware, is a African-American dominated league. And over a third of all the players identify as LGBTQ, typically a lesbian. So at least a third, over a third of the entire league are lesbians, and the majority of them are African-Americans. And so for a white heterosexual, and she went to Catholic school, she grew up Catholic. Now, I'm not here to endorse any of Caitlin Clark's opinions. Again, we're looking at a cultural phenomenon and how Caitlin Clark is really the face of the WNBA, and the animosity that is directed at her because she is white, because she is heterosexual, and because she has such a large following, potentially due to those characteristics. Now, she's not a controversial person per se. And I know for my family, for example, we have my great grandfather built a cottage. Anybody who's familiar with the state of Iowa, Northwest Iowa, in Spirit Lake, Okoboji, Iowa, and they have a Methodist camp up there. And we still own that cottage, and that's where my parents typically go during the summer to vacation. And so Iowa, Indiana, these are kind of like the home states that I kind of grew up in. And in Iowa, everybody loves Caitlin Clark. Same thing here in Indiana, because she plays for the Indiana Fever. Now, my mom specifically, like white boomer women, love to watch Caitlin Clark. Now, the WNBA as a product really is not that great. And we're going to talk about all this. But this phenomenon is that a white heterosexual girl, and she's only in her second year, is the face of the WNBA, the face of women's basketball. Now, moving over to the men's sports, we see who is the best player in the NBA. And for some of you guys, I know you don't follow sports, so that's going to be part of the conversation today. It's actually Nikola Jokic. It's a Serbian guy, Serbian Orthodox white guy who's not impressively athletic, but by the statistics and by the amount of MVPs he's won in the recent years, can comfortably be said to be the most important, or if not the best player in the NBA, a white guy. Now, also in the NBA, we just had at the end of this past NBA season, the biggest trade in NBA history when Luka Doncic, a Slovenian guy, another European, another white guy, was traded from the Dallas Mavericks to the LA Lakers. And that is the biggest trade contract in NBA history. Now, interesting. In addition to that, Mac McClung, another white guy who's 6'2", has for the last 3 years won the NBA dunk contest. He's one of the few people to three-peat. And in addition to that, he's white. Very interesting little phenomenon. In addition to that, obviously the NHL is a white-dominated league, and so it'd be no surprise that Connor McDavid is the #1 hockey player in the world. Again, another white guy. Not a big deal. It's the NHL. Everybody kind of expects that. But then you move over to the MLB, right? So the 4 biggest sports leagues in America, NHL, NBA, MLB, NHL. When you go over to the MLB, who's the biggest players in the league? Well, the #1 player by far is Shohei Ohtani, who's Japanese. The first Japanese player to really take on the mantle as the best player in baseball in the world. Now, next to him, and arguably potentially the best player, or next to the best player, I would say Shohei Ohtani is the best player because he not only is one of the best hitters in the league, he's also one of the better pitchers. He's like a top 20 pitcher. And so he pitches and hits. It's a rare commodity in professional baseball. But the other one is Aaron Judge. Now, Aaron Judge is an interesting case because Aaron Judge is actually biracial. Now, he could, on his appearance, could pass as a white guy, but he was adopted at birth by a white couple. And so they raised him, and he is a conservative Methodist Christian who married his high school sweetheart, and he is a towering monster of a man, and he's known for, again, being a great home run hitter. And so you look at all this stuff, it's very interesting to see how white people, and then let's move to the NFL too. So the NFL, the biggest sports league in America, by far, not even close. The NFL is the largest. We have another phenomenon that touches back with the state of Iowa. And that is what is being referred to as the exciting whites. The exciting whites. What am I talking about with the exciting whites? There's, for the first time in like 30 or 40 years, last NFL draft, so not this past one, but the one before, a gentleman that played defensive back for the University of Iowa, Cooper DeJean, was drafted in the first round as a cornerback. Now, why is that significant? Who cares? Well, the cornerback position, the position of the defender that guards the receivers, the people who catch the football, that is a historically dominant black position. And it's considered to be the most athletic position on the NFL or on any sort of football field, is the defensive back position. No white guy has been drafted. In fact, there's been very, very few for basically the last 50 years of white defensive backs that were starters. Cooper DeJean is one of the rare exceptions. And another guy from the University of Iowa, Riley Moss, was also drafted as a cover corner. You say, okay, not a big deal. Well, it kind of is, because even for Cooper DeJean, who plays on the Philadelphia Eagles, their safety, Blankenship, he's also white. And so they acclaimed the title by both black athletes and people watching sports as the exciting whites, and how this is a sort of return of the white man in the sense that he is actually excelling in majority dominated black positions in sports. And so you look at the Cooper Flag, the number one draft in the NBA this past season, another white American. So he's not even European. He's a white guy. I think he's from like South Dakota or something. And he played for Duke, and he was now just the number one pick in the NBA and got picked by the Dallas Mavericks. Now, I say all that because look at what I just painted is this phenomenon of Sydney Sweeney is really much bigger than American Eagle in the genes. What I'm going to make the case is that this is really in opposition to what I would call the diversity turn. That's kind of my label for it, from essentially America after the year 2000 to the year of 2020. And that through that 20-year period, American hegemonic culture was dominated by affirmative action, DEI, and diversity and equity. And that this push for diversity, again, after 2020, you started to see the right wing and the Trump supporters start to speak out against woke culture. And woke culture has been on a decline ever since 2020. And now, 5 years later, we're at a point where American Eagle is able to make, controversial wordplay with their advertisement of a white girl. We're seeing a viral trend. Again, it's very cringy to watch these sorority girls actually dance and do their songs and stuff. It's pretty cringy. However, what does that represent? Almost every video, when we click on TikTok and go to sorority dances, almost every video are sororities, all of white girls. I only found a couple that had any girls of color in them. And again, what is this representing? But then when you look at professional sports and you look at Caitlin Clark being the sensation she is and the hate that's directed at her, she's the number one player in the WNBA. Then you look at the NBA, a Serbian man's the number one player. You look at the MLB, interesting demographics on the top player. By far the number one player, Shohei Ohtani, who's Japanese. And then after that, you have Aaron Judge, who, again, biracial, but certainly representative of like conservative white culture. You look at what's going on in the NFL with these defensive backs. Then you look at sports media itself, which anybody who watches sports or follows sports, ESPN, who's owned by Disney, is always putting out these diversity hires, right? And so because of this, the number one sports show on TV right now is actually the Pat McAfee show, who again is rooted here in Indianapolis. He was a punter for the Indianapolis Colts. And on his show, all the commentators are essentially white, except one, Darius Butler, who is a cornerback that played for the Indianapolis Colts. And it's not a racial thing. It's not like there's a racial tension on the Pat McAfee show. But my point is to highlight that in the same period, I mean, in 2020, we had the George Floyd phenomenon, where everybody had to post a black square, where, and in this cultural climate, white as an identity has really been a sort of a marker for people who have no identity. And I would argue, and what I'm going to argue here in this opening monologue, and then we'll get into a lot of the fun stuff, is that that's really what's happening here, is that this is really a larger cultural phenomenon of a recognition of race and a recentering of white identity within American pop culture, generally speaking. And so the first thing that I wanted to point out is that these ads are not just selling products. Anybody who's watching TV, and this is not my opinion, this is not trying to be controversial. You can go put this in a search engine and you'll see a bunch of stuff pop up about the prevalence of interracial couples in corporate advertisement. Now, why is that? And I've made a point. And when my German wife, when she moved here to the U.S., she thought African Americans were about half of the U.S. population purely based on watching ads, because there were so many African Americans in advertisements. And then when I told her, no, they're actually only 13% of the U.S. population, she was blown away. She was blown away by how many people are presented on the advertisements, whether it be on her computer or if you watch television or whatever it may be. And in those advertisements, you hardly ever see a monogamous, white, traditional couple. Now, there are a few, and there are some, and I will even give credit to ads that have like a black father and a black mother. But you do see those a lot more than you see like a heterosexual, strong, masculine white man. And we've done this before, like watching sports with family and stuff. I'll make a comment. I'm like, let's see if we can find any commercial where there's a masculine, white, good-looking guy. And almost none of them, except every once in a while, you'll see one in like a Mercedes-Benz commercial or a Calvin Klein commercial or a Dolce Gabbana. But even those are now getting really weird and LGBTQ themed. So, and that was the problem with Jaguar, the British car company. They went from like this Bond aesthetic, this James Bond sort of, clean-cut, sophisticated white European aesthetic to just having like transgenders and all minority groups in their last presentation. And that CEO was fired from Jaguar because their sales dropped dramatically. Same thing happened with Bud Light. Remember a few years ago with Bud Light and Dylan Mulvaney, when they used a guy who has a psychosis, who thinks he's a teenage girl when he's really an adult male, be the face of Budweiser advertisement. What the heck is going on here? And so you see advertisements, and the advertisement agenda is way more than just selling a product. And we have to keep that in mind when we look at the the American Eagle commercial with Sydney Sweeney, because what I'm arguing is that this is actually signaling a sort of in-group identity and a sort of fatigue with the DEI saturated imagery of the contemporary period. We're going to see that on the Indiana Fever, there's two other girls with Caitlin Clark, and they are fairly attractive, Lexi Hull and Sophie Cunningham. And Sophie Cunningham, a blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl who's very pretty, she is now the face of an Arby's commercial that says "Hot girls eat Arby's." Now, I'm not here to promote, hot girls or sorority girls dancing. That's not the point. Taking a step back, looking at this as a cultural phenomenon, what is going on? And what's going on is a recentering of white as an actual in-group identity, as opposed to what I would describe it as a sort of unmarked default identity, right? I would say during that 20-year period, from the 20s to the 2020, to be labeled white is really to be labeled as an unmarked group, a sort of default group. And what's happening now is a recentering of what I've seen the African Americans on TikTok, some of the women say this is all about Eurocentric beauty standards. Okay, well, you don't have to be in favor of Eurocentric beauty standards, but certainly the American Eagle commercial of Sydney Sweeney is putting forth and recentering Eurocentric beauty standards as an ideal. And of course, everybody knows the phenomenon of these black athletes marrying white women, typically blonde-haired or beautiful white women, and that's very controversial within the black community. And so part of today's conversation, I also have videos of black people, especially black men, upset with all the interracial advertisement, because the people who really, the group that is most frustrated by this stuff is actually black women. There's actually there's been multiple studies. I'm not going to pull any up. I think I did one on a previous stream, but you can look at what like a variety of ethnic groups find the most attractive group. Well, white women always score the highest. Black women amongst all types of men, so Asians, Hispanics, Europeans, African Americans, black women tend to be almost always the lowest. And so black women are really dependent upon black men being with them. And so the degradation of the black community, which you can, since 1964 with welfare, they have a lot of internal problems and issues. But you'll see that the people that are most affected by the prevalence of these athletes marrying these white girls are the black women, and they're the most upset about it. And so when you see the animosity towards Caitlin Clark, which I'm going to show you clips of people talking about, when you see the reference to the American Eagle ad as being Nazi, as being undertoned with eugenics rhetoric, what's really going on here? And this is the competition, what I would argue, this is a competition of hegemonic narratives. So using somebody like Antonio Gramsci, the communist theorist, Italian communist theorist Gramsci, he talked a lot about cultural hegemony. And I'm arguing that for years, at least for the last 20 years, DEI framing has been the dominant hegemonic standard amongst mainstream marketing and mainstream American culture. And if you were to speak out against this stuff, then you're labeled as bigoted or whatever, label that they want to place you on. And so this ad, the prevalence of these athletes, the notoriety of people like Caitlin Clark is really part of a counter hegemonic cultural movement, not against diversity per se, but a recentering of white identity is actually an in-group and an identity in and of itself. And so even in the American Eagle ad, she's wearing denim. She's wearing a sort of Canadian tuxedo, a denim jacket with denim jeans. Well, denim and jeans are iconically American, iconically cowboy American, right? And so even embedded within the jeans themselves, there's deeper layers of meaning at play here. And so what we're witnessing and why the liberals and the progressives are so upset with Sweeney, so upset with the sorority girl TikTok videos, so upset with Caitlin Clark, so upset, even the NBA players, so upset with the Europeans playing basketball, people very critical and not wanting to give credence to the white defensive backs in the NFL. This has to do with a hegemonic struggle of the normative cultural narrative. And I've talked to you guys before in regards to sociological theories, in regards to like the sacred canopy of Peter Berger. Peter Berger is a famous Protestant sociologist, American sociologist, and he argues that every culture has to have a sacred canopy that is the collection of symbols, myths, narratives, iconic figures that represent and solidify who the people are underneath that canopy. And I've been talking to you guys for the last 2 or 3 years about how the sacred canopy, the American sacred canopy, has been entirely torn. And again, reference back to the summer of love of George Floyd, where multiple U.S. cities were being burned down. And you had people in Portland, Oregon, creating their own socialist encampments. Oh, dang it. I just lost my train of thought. We were talking about... so George Floyd, Summer of Love, that even then the cultural heroes of America, like Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, even people like Robert E. Lee, who you don't have to be pro-Confederate to recognize that he is one of the greatest American generals of all time. Robert E. Lee was a good man, and he was a very competent man, and he's a man worthy of history. Doesn't mean you have to like him, doesn't mean you have to be for the Confederacy, but you see even the tearing down of the statues and now the recent rebuilding of putting statues of like overweight black women, just random people. What is going on? You see, this is a tearing in the cultural canopy, and the cultural canopy is established through what Peter Berger argued is the process of legitimation, is that symbols, ideas, concepts, and identity is actually legitimated through a process of externalization. You say the idea, you express the symbol, then it becomes solidified as a symbol, and then it can be then uptook by the individuals witnessing it, and then they can re-express it. And so this process of legitimizing ideas and concepts, this is how you form a sacred canopy. Well, our canopy is split. And so what you're seeing is what I'm arguing from a sociological perspective is that white America is re-solidifying some type of sacred canopy. And one of the things that is going to be a common denominator amongst all these white athletes is that they're all Christian. Now, they're not Orthodox. They're not doing apologetics based on, what's the true historical church, but culturally, typically within a Protestant framework, they're all Christian of some sort. And so you're seeing, again, this hegemonic structure. What Gramsci, Antonio Gramsci's argument, he's the one that talked about the long march through the institutions, that for communist ideals to prevail, they need communists to infiltrate institutions and take over and acquire power. But, don't be explicitly communist while you're rising to points of power. That would be contradictory to the larger goal. I recently heard a clip of Nick Fuentes, and that's exactly what he was arguing, that the clip that I saw on X was essentially him telling his young viewers that if you follow him and you support his ideas, don't out yourself, don't post videos of him, don't support him, but just grow your power level, essentially. Figure out what your skill is, move into an institution, excel, make money, and acquire power. That is essentially the exact thing that Gramsci argued in the reverse for communists. And this is before really the Cultural Revolution in America. And so what we're seeing then is a serious interplay, a sort of recognition of race and identity going on in America, and how then these conversations are reinterpreting these symbols, right? So the externalization, the symbolism, and then the internalization, this process of legitimation, the symbols themselves are being perceived very differently based on which group is looking at them. And so I'd also argue that, as I mentioned earlier, whiteness and being white has typically, especially for the last 20 years, pre-2020, has meant a sort of absence of identity. As I called it, it's a sort of unmarked default. But what we're seeing here is the white archetype is the heritage American style, right? And so Americana, this is why I saw TikToks of black girls going crazy that white girls were wearing jean shorts, because jean shorts then signify support for Sydney Sweeney, which signifies support for their genetics, which then signifies support for eugenics and like mass white supremacy racism. And it's like, what? How did you get there? But if you try to follow it from their perspective, you again, jean shorts, Daisy Dukes, Dukes of Hazzard, Confederate General Lee Carr, white America. You see, for them, they're trying to connect these symbols and they're reinterpreting them different ways. Not that black girls don't wear jean shorts, right? Not that jean shorts are explicitly a white trope for racial identity. But you're seeing how the symbols, the canopy has been split. America is fractured. Everybody's in their own silos. And what we're seeing with the dominance of white professional athletes, the prevalence of Caitlin Clark in the WNBA, and a league that's historically black and historically very pro LGBTQ. As I said, over a third of the league are identified as lesbians. Or in there's players, for example, there was a player on the Fever that got traded to begin this past season. The WNBA. I'm not advocating anybody to watch the WNBA, but she got traded to the Indiana Fever this season. This was a black woman, and her wife played for a different team. And when she got here, she was a huge problem because she hated Caitlin Clark. She didn't like the white girls on the Indiana Fever, and they ended up trading her to the team where she now plays with her wife. And this is kind of the dynamic. And then within the WNBA, you're seeing these white girls that are blonde-haired, blue-eyed, and they're taking the exact opposite. They're doing everything to promote black athletes. They're saying, now again, they're the minority of the WNBA, and yet they're using their pedestal to make sure that they want to recognize the black players. Now, again, if you were still trying to be logically consistent here in regards to diversity, equity, and inclusion, well, then when the white girls need to be celebrated in the WNBA since they're a minority, when the white cornerbacks in the NFL, who, again, Cooper DeJean, first one drafted in, I forget, 30, 40 years, first round to be a white cover corner, meaning he's all by himself. He's not a safety. He's not a nickel. He's actually a solid cover corner, although he plays nickel. Well, you would think that they would be celebrated for that. And even after one season as a rookie, Cooper DeJean was recognized as a top 60 NFL player in the league. Now, there's, again, hundreds of players in the NFL, and a white rookie cover cornerback is labeled the 60th best player in the NFL. Now, you say, okay, 60, so what? Well, it's something. It's something. And something is going on here in culture, generally speaking. And in the Trump presidency, now, you guys know my criticisms of Trump. You know my criticism of Zionism. I'm not here to support the Trump administration, but even Trump himself, you see, is a catalyst for this sort of cultural phenomenon and the symbolism, right? So he's an American tycoon billionaire, white, blonde-haired, blue eyes. Now, I'm not saying that you should dissolve all these things to these, but the other side, the critical race theory side, dissolves everything down to the mutable characteristics of race. And if you are them, that's all you can see. And if you are looking at the culture through that lens, look at what is happening. It would appear as though, and look, another phenomenon would be country music. Country music is now the most popular music in America. It has surpassed hip hop and rap. What does that mean? Is it have to do with, again, the historical white American and a loss of identity? And we're seeing that the Gen X, millennial, Gen X, Gen Alpha is returning back to something that it seems like more tangible, more Americana. I think so. Again, there's a larger phenomenon that's occurring here. And so I argue that this is sort of a post-multiculturalism fatigue is what we're witnessing. And so, and even I found a sociologist named Vertovec, and he described the same thing. So this is an academic sociologist. This is somebody who's, probably not in our camp, but what he is witnessing from a sociological perspective is that he's witnessing a shift from celebrating diversity to what he is calling cultural fatigue with diversity discourse. And what does that do? That has allowed space for ads like American Eagle, like Dunkin' Donuts. We're going to watch a commercial with Dunkin' Donuts who plays off the same trope of the genetic thing regarding a handsome white male laying out in the sun by the pool. And so these ads are sort of positioned in a post-multiculturalist gesture of fatigue, representing a demographic who have been or have typically felt excluded from the DEI narrative and a desire to return as cultural symbols. And that's really what this is, right? Because if you move the clock back, and I'm not even in for like the hot girl with her tits out, like advertisement, but even for that to be presented is butting up against the fat girl, the fat trans girl for Calvin Klein ads. Now, why would Calvin Klein have a fat dude who identifies as a woman wearing a sports bra and panties on a billboard? And so what we're seeing then, as I'm saying, is a sort of post-multiculturalist DEI fatigue, where the group that felt to be excluded from the DEI narrative is reasserting themselves as cultural symbols, and that this really is now a cultural war. And so, and we see ads, brand themselves in regards to micro niches. We've seen companies brand themselves as woke, and we're seeing some corporations brand themselves as anti-woke. And so within advertisement proper, there's the culture war. And what have we seen? So American Eagle does their ad with Sydney Sweeney. What happens? They explode in sales. All the young white girls need to go get American Eagle jeans. And so was it profitable for American Eagle? Yeah. And when they were challenged on the commercial saying that this is racist, this has Nazi dog whistles, this is reference to white eugenics programs, they said, no, Sydney Sweeney looks great in our jeans, and everybody can look good in our jeans, and that's it. And the fact that they doubled down on it is actually a serious cultural phenomenon, because it shows that cancel culture is essentially dead, and that there is now a new space for the articulation of white identity in America. And I would say that's what's going on. Now, the black girl, we're going to watch videos where black girls are crying over the Sydney Sweeney ad. What is it that is evoking so much emotion? It's the historical trajectory that the progressive left has felt that they've been on for the last 20 years is feeling like it's coming to a screeching halt. And that is because the oppositional force in the culture war is actually in action, and that there truly is an oppositional force now. Now, it's so subtle. It's certainly not Orthodox Christian. It's not explicitly Christian, but something is happening. And so that's what we're going to be getting into today, guys. So smash that like. The rest of today's stream is going to be a lot less intellectual and more kind of fun, but analyzing all this stuff and looking deeper at it. So let me check. Xtanglia throws in $2, says nice whites. Well, thanks. And I was going to title the stream, I thought it might be too on the nose, the exciting whites, because that is literally, as I'm going to show you, that is literally the term being used to refer to the white defensive backs in the NFL. They're being called the exciting whites. Why? Because within the NFL, it's been like a running character and joke that if you as a black man are covered by a white man and you can't beat him, then you don't deserve to be in the NFL, because what seems to be common knowledge is that, well, black guys are more athletic. And therefore, if you get stopped by a white guy, you must not be athletic enough. You've sort of lost your black man card, right? Well, now we're seeing that whites are actually excelling to such a degree that it doesn't matter who it is. And so even them have described these white guys as the exciting whites. And I thought maybe I should title this stream "The Exciting Whites." And then I thought about it. I was like, oh, that might be a little bit too on the nose. That might get the YouTube channel flagged. So I decided we'll just keep it hot, white girl summer. And because really that's what's happened this summer, right? That's really what this has been about, is the resurgence of like blonde-haired, blue-eyed women being hot and attractive, and that like just being the thing in and of itself. That's just it. And people like, wow, that's refreshing. Even though again, there's like tension of like over-sexualization and stuff like that. But what is it doing? It's moving the barometer towards heterosexuality. So, anyways, that's enough of that rant. Snaggle Beast, been a member for 18 months. He says, my dad and uncle single-handedly keep the WNBA in business with how much I hear about Caitlin Clark. Yeah. I do not watch the WNBA. I just followed up on some themes, some threads and stories for today's stream. But I'm in Indiana, so Caitlin Clark is ginormous here. And as I said, I spent a lot of my summers in Iowa, and obviously she's from Iowa. She's huge there. And so is Cooper DeJean, the cornerback for the Eagles. So, yeah, as I'm going to show you, the WNBA product is not that good. And part of what's happening, too, is the recognition with men and women's sports is, I don't know if you've seen these videos of like high school boys teams competing with professional women, and how like the high school team will like the best boys high school basketball team in America will beat the best WNBA team. There was all these videos of like the 12 to 16 or 14 to 16-year-old soccer team, the boys soccer team. They dominated the U.S. women's soccer team. It was not even close. The women didn't even score. It was like 12 goals to nothing. And so, again, a sort of recognition of reality. I mean, men's sports is just better to watch. It's just better because men are physically superior. Maybe beach volleyball, gymnastics, women, have an upper leg on, but yeah, don't watch the WNBA. It's not good stuff. I'd rather watch boys high school basketball any day of the week. Thank you so much. David James Flood just gifted a COTEL Crew membership. God bless you, brother. Shout out to Kristen Slowboy Whiteboard, says, take wifey to the Ratskeller beer garden, Heidelberg Haus on Pendleton Pike, and a day trip to the village of Oldenburg. We want to know her thoughts. That's really a good idea, actually. I'm going to save that. We have not been to the Ratskeller yet. Maybe we'll do that this weekend. I know the Live Golf Tournament is actually in Indianapolis. It's on the north side in Westfield this weekend. I was thinking about stopping in, maybe getting some tickets and going to the Live Golf Tournament. See Phil Mickelson, Bryson DeChambeau, John Rahm, those guys. But yeah, Kristen, I will take her to some of these German places. We've been to Oldenburg, I think, the day trip. That's in southern Indiana, right? You're talking about like the old German monastic community in Indiana. We went there to a German restaurant and had lunch one day, but we haven't done the Ratskeller or Heidelberg House, so I'll have to check that out. David James Flood says it was actually Rudy Dutsky who coined the term long march through the institutions, but he was essentially verbalizing Gramsci's plan of attack. Oh, okay. V. Scott throws in two, says the black girls with blonde hair as well. Yeah, well, again, so look at that's a perfect example of what's going on. I could pull up Beyonce. Did you guys see that when Sydney Sweeney did the ad with American Eagle, during that same week, I think it was Levi put out an ad with Beyonce. And what is Beyonce wearing? Well, she's also wearing a Canadian tuxedo, denim jacket, matching denim jeans. She has bright blonde hair, and her skin has been lightened where she's almost passable as white. And there's all these memes online comparing her to like the 2020 Destiny's Child Beyonce with the new Levi commercial. And she looks like, 5-6 shades lighter. And of course, she has this bright blonde, long, straight hair. And the question comes, is that not a cultural appropriation? Right? Like, why is Beyonce, why does she have to have blonde hair? Why does her skin have to be lighter? Why does she have to dress up like a cowgirl? Is this trying to, again, signify the entrance of like black pop culture into this country Americana sphere? It feels like that. Again, that's what I mean. There is a real culture war happening, and taking a step back as opposed to being like, I like this, I like that. Just take a step back and just look at the phenomenon. And tied with all this, you have the growth that Nick Fuentes has experienced this past summer. So I'm not here to endorse Nick Fuentes. Like I've told you before, I don't watch all of his stuff. He's a very articulate guy. He's got some ideas I agree with, some things I don't agree with. Don't know a ton about him. I know there's a lot of speculation. There's a rift between Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes right now. And I will say, out of that little scuff up between the three of them, I would say Fuentes has actually come out looking better. And this is kind of the same thing, because what Nick Fuentes has done with his clip videos, not saying he has done this, but people who do follow him, is on Instagram, on these social medias, on X, like, people are diehard followers of his, but they put out so many clips of his material and it goes viral. I mean, I look on X at some of the video clips that pop up on my feed. These are people I don't even follow. And it's got like 1.5 million views, million impressions. It's like, wow. And so Nick Fuentes himself, no matter what you think of him, we're just looking at it as a cultural phenomenon. He is also part and parcel of this, because he's vocalizing things about identity that are resonating with the younger people, for sure. I'm talking like 14 to 25-year-old males. I mean, Fuentes, I would assume out of that, probably more young men are listening to Fuentes than people like Charlie Kirk. It's what it feels like. And so there's a real shift that's occurring, and Fuentes is now entering the mainstream. And this is why I think for so long his name was like Voldemort, right? You don't speak it. You may bring him into existence by speaking his name, but now with the Candace Owens, doing her interview, which I think it looked kind of bad on her. It did look kind of hit piecey and, kind of like high school drama stuff, especially with what, according to Fuentes, said they were supposed to talk about Iran and like serious issues. But just by her wanting to like do a new debate and Tucker mentioning him in the conversation with Candace, it's like he has essentially entered into the mainstream. And despite the gatekeeping that has occurred, it's just not going to be profitable from this point forward. I think the oversaturation, he sort of breached the threshold, whatever that threshold was. I'm not sure, but certainly it feels like Fuentes has breached that threshold and certainly has sort of entered mainstream political discourse and sentiments, and is even indicative of kind of the split within the MAGA party. But yeah, I don't know how I got on Fuentes. V. Scott talking about black girl with blonde hair is wild. Forgive me, guys. Forgive me for going on tangents. Blue Skittle says, let her cook. Yeah. And Brady Harvey says, Nick Fuentes has had his own white girl summer in a way. Yeah, that's my point. I would agree, but it's all tied together, right? With the white sorority girl dances, the Sydney Sweeney stuff, the Dunkin' Donuts, the Caitlin Clark phenomenon, right? When you look at the major stories over the last summer, and everything outside of Zionism and Trump wanting to do everything that Netanyahu asked him to do, outside of those stories, in regards to the cultural stories of America, it's always almost all centered around whiteness, typically white women this summer. I mean, that is a phenomenon that has occurred. Now, what does it all mean? And I think that it's a larger phenomenon that, again, just like the Fuentes thing, it's not going to be able to be stopped. That there is a recentering on what does it mean to be American? What does it mean to be white? And what does it mean to participate in a multiracial America in the 21st century? I think all these things are actually being discussed and being dealt with in a very strange cultural manner. Over on Dono Chat, Anon sends in $20, no comment. Thank you very much, Anonymous, for the support. Do appreciate it. And then Andrew Appalachian Yank throws in 5, says, anyone else think the complaints about Sweeney should be about her ditzy, uptalky, vocal, fry-laden voice? What a horrible yet typical example of modern womanhood, a vapid, sexualized broad. I don't even know if I've heard her speak very much, so I can't say much about the tonality of her voice. But yeah, she is a sexualized broad. I believe, again, I don't know, but I believe she's done like nude scenes in some of the TV shows. I don't really watch any movies or TV shows, so I can't even tell you what there are. But yeah, she's kind of like I wouldn't say at the same level of, but approaching a sort of Marilyn Monroe figure in American culture. But again, in the racial cultural landscape that currently exists in America, it is something to be noted, whether she's brainless or not. I mean, she very well probably is a sort of brainless, vapid, sexualized broad that because she has big breasts and a nice body. I mean, she plays into it. She's always posting like bikini pics and stuff like that. But again, what does all this stuff mean? And these advertisements that keep saying hot girl are all being blonde-haired women with blue eyes. What does this mean? What is it symbolizing? I think that's part of the larger discourse here. That's quite interesting. Let me see if anybody's sent anything in over on Streamlabs, and then we'll dive into all the videos and articles I got for you guys. So we'll watch. Next thing we're going to do is actually watch the American Eagle commercial and see what it has to say. So let's do that. But before we do, just to do some quick housekeeping, if anybody would like to set up a one-on-one session where we can get into a private Zoom meeting and talk about any topic your heart desires, you can do so with this link right here. It's a great way to support my work, and we can get into a private session and discuss topics that you find of interest. And then here is the link. If anybody would like to sponsor a stream, you can sponsor a stream with this link right here. Let me pull up all my tabs. Okay, so here we go. And before we even dive into it, guys, we just had a great Bible study last night over in the Logos Academy. We just went through the first chapter of the Gospel of John with about 20-some guys. We all read it ahead of time. Some people brand new to Christianity, actually reading the gospel for the first time, and others much more rooted in the faith. But we're doing all types of stuff over in the Logos Academy. Again, we got tons of exclusive content. I just did a video on Putin and his relationship to the Jews. That's actually quite interesting, especially before the meeting tomorrow between Trump and Putin in Alaska. That's about an hour long, 55 minutes. Got videos on the red heifers, of which, did you guys see on Timcast last night? One of the Jewish guys claimed that the real red heifer had been sacrificed a month ago. Did you guys see this? Chat, did you see this? So very interesting. I shared this with a buddy. Actually, I shared it with the Eschaton Vigil. He's claiming that the true red heifer was already sacrificed. According to the Jewish guy that was on Timcast yesterday, he said that the Israeli government, because how much blowback and how much outrage there was about them sacrificing the red heifer, which is, of course, the beginning of the building of the Third Temple, blowing up the Al-Aqsa Mosque, all this different stuff. They said, okay, let's postpone it. Let's postpone the sacrifice of the red heifer. And apparently these rabbis said, okay, we'll just do a mock sacrifice. Can we sacrifice one of the blemished red heifers? And apparently, according to the guy on Timcast, the Israeli government said, yeah, go ahead, sacrifice one of the blemished red heifers. And so instead of grabbing one of the blemished ones, they grabbed the real one and apparently did the full ritual sacrifice. Don't know what that means. Don't know if, I'm not sure how it's received, but that was what was spoken last night on Timcast. So if you didn't know and you want to be updated on some of that stuff and why it's important, you can go over to, again, the exclusive videos. And then my part two on Zionism is focused on Israeli Zionism, and that's almost 2 hours long. And that's for members as well. So if you want to be part of our fitness accountability group, again, like every month, if you go over here to the Logos Fitness and Lifestyle tab, you'll see August accountability. And then I put out my goals. We meet and we discuss these things. I put out my fitness, diet, spiritual life, career goals. And then we see all the members did the exact same thing. So if you want to be part of a community doing this type of stuff, guys, sign up at school.com/Logos Academy. You can get access through this link right here. This is it. Really, if you want to be part of the educational dimension of all this stuff, join the Logos Academy. I promise you, it's absolutely worth it. Okay. Now, with that being said, let's start getting back into our topic today. And so here's the first thing I want to show you is just going over some of the American Eagle Sydney Sweeney ad, and then we'll be looking at some of the reaction to it and what people thought. So here it is. I think there's two commercials. They're very short. They're like 15 seconds. And let me see if I got the audio up. Come on, let's connect. There we go. Okay.
My body's composition is determined by my genes. Hey, eyes up here.
Sydney Sweeney has great genes.
So you see, my body's composition is made up by my great genes. Clearly a play on genetics here. Here's a liberal's outrage.
Weird. Like, I will be the friend that's too woke because those Sydney Sweeney American Eagle ads are weird. Like, fascist weird. Like, Nazi propaganda weird.
My body's composition is determined by my genes. Hey, eyes up here.
Sydney Sweeney has great genes.
Genes are passed down from parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color, personality, and even eye color. My genes are blue.
Sydney Sweeney has great genes.
Should we be surprised that a company whose name is literally American Eagle is making fascist propaganda like this? Probably not, but it's still really shocking. Like, a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white woman is talking about her good genes. Like, that is Nazi propaganda. I also am thinking about like all of the young girls who are doing their back to school shopping right now at places like American Eagle who are seeing ads like this. Yikes. Also, American Eagle is mostly a brand that like teenagers to like young adults shop at. And so the fact that like this type of advertising is being used that feels so for the male gaze and so over sexualized.
Well, here's the irony. Like, she's saying that the advertisement was for the male gaze. No doubt it's being sexualized, but the success of the ad campaign has been astronomical. From everything that I read, and we can pull articles up if you want. I thought it would be kind of boring. We're going to mostly look at videos and stuff today, but it's been incredibly successful for young women. And yeah, I do think it's very interesting where, especially the second one, I'll show it to you again here in a second, where she talks about how qualities like hair color and eye color, these are based on the genetics of your parents. And then she talks about my genes are blue. Well, that's a recognition of the genetics behind blue eyes. I have blue eyes. I'm sure a lot of you guys have blue eyes. And so is it explicitly fascist or eugenics or not? Of course not. All it is really is just a recognition of white identity and white phenotypes. and recognizing too that those phenotypes are sought after by men of all persuasions. As I said, you can pull up attractiveness studies, and white women are deemed the most attractive. It's like white women and then Asian women, and then like Hispanic, Arab women, and then black women are at the bottom of attractiveness based on all men, all different racial groups of men. And so it's playing on the fact that that white women are a commodity that all men are interested in as well. So Garrett just threw in 5, said a family friend who is dispensational has a friend who is part of the documentation of the red heifer sacrifice. Oh, absolutely insane. Told me July 21st. Wow. That is pretty insane. Always wanted green eyes. Yeah. Blue eyes are Nazis. You guys aren't allowed to have blue eyes. What the heck? So again, and here is the second ad. So I showed you the first ad. Here is the second one. You saw a clip of it in that video, but again, I mean, it is explicitly playing on genetics here.
Genes are passed down from parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color, personality, and even eye color. My genes are blue.
Sydney Sweeney has very keens.
So again, whatever you think of Sydney Sweeney or, you know, the advertisement, it's interesting. And so here was so here is American Eagle again, playing on the idea of the cancel culture, demanding them to apologize. It says, to whom it may concern, we sincerely apologize for featuring Sydney Sweeney in our recent advertisement. In hindsight, we underestimated the combined impact of her blue eyes, blonde hair, and general hotness. Also, we did not realize how big her boobs would be. Our marketing team has been sent to denim sensitivity training. Thank you for your feedback. Please stop emailing us. So again, like this was a viral thing of a woman, again, an overweight black woman with a shaved head, dyed blonde, flipping off Sydney Sweeney ad that just says Sydney Sweeney has great genes. So this is, again, real outrage about all this stuff. So moving forward here, part of it, again, I would say part of it comes in light of the fact that if anybody who's looked at contemporary advertisement, you hardly ever see an attractive white man. An attractive white man. That's part of this thing. And again, we have a Dunkin' Donuts commercial that actually does, you know, feature a heterosexual white man. But the point that I wanted to express is just looking here. This is MeUndies. Every single advertisement they have is a black man with a blonde-haired woman. Now, again, is interracial marriage or couples a sin? No, not per se. But the fact that there's a subversive element where, again, what is the American Eagle ad playing off of? The purity of Sydney Sweeney's genetics, so that she has the phenotypes that she has, which makes her the hot girl that she is, right? But then you see all these advertisements, and it's always a black man with a blonde girl. These are MeUndies commercials, advertisements. So a little bit about who owns MeUndies. Interesting. But then you can go through here, and all I did was put in interracial commercials. And so you see one reference to Sydney Sweeney about how it's a push against it. Here is a guy who put together a sort of 16-minute video of counter arguments. And here I'll just play a little bit. We're not going to watch this whole video, but just to play a little bit of it, because it shows you how overt it is in regards to the no recognition of a traditional white family in corporate America. Like, you just hardly ever see that. A white, and I think, what was it? The Apple commercial they did for the Super Bowl. So once Trump was going to become president, everybody knows, the commercials during the Super Bowl worth millions and millions of dollars, all this different stuff. Well, Apple did a commercial that was very wholesome. It was about a father being able to be there with his daughter and how, I think it was an iPad or something, they're able to interact and have a good time during the Christmas season. And that was one of the few ads that had a decent looking masculine white man in a family where he's present. Because when you do see white men in ads, very often they're homosexual or they're very effeminate, or they're with a dominant black wife or a Latino wife or even an Asian wife. And almost in all those circumstances, the joke is on how dumb the white guy is. So just check. We're just going to watch a little bit of this video because he's trying to document the prevalence of this within commercials. Again, what the Sydney Sweeney ad is really responding to.
7% of the population, blacks are less than 2%. I wondered if the purpose of diverse advertising was to sell more products or really to indoctrinate, to condition, and signal how progressive they are. Based on small glimpses of culture, one might assume half or more of all relationships involve some sort of race mixing. If a person who had no information about the US or Europe were to see our television, magazine, billboard, and storefront advertisements, he might assume there were virtually zero normal white men anywhere to be found. The combination of white women with black men is hands down the most common mixed-race couple depicted in advertising. That combination will be the focus of this essay. I thought about the probability that 2 of the 3 advertisement couples I saw in the mall that afternoon were there by mere coincidence. Between men and women, white, black, Hispanic, Asian, and other, there are 25 possible combinations of couples. If the diversity in advertising was truly about appealing to the greatest number of customers or potential customers, showing white women with black men at such a high level seems to be a very odd strategy. To focus so much on one combination while ignoring so many others, there simply must be some other goal beyond selling merchandise. There is a notable and interesting body of research on interracial relationships and marriages. It is not exhaustive by any means, but we can synthesize the available data to form an accurate view of such relationships. Pew Research 2012 conducted a large study of interracial marriage that provides a considerable amount of data. Since 1980, the total percent of interracial marriages has risen from 3.2% to 8.4%. Of new marriages, the rate rose from 6.7% to 15.1%. In 2010, the most common intermarriage was white Hispanic at 43.3% and white black, the least common, at 11.9%. Not all interracial relationships, of course, are marriages, but we can use the marriage data to reasonably extrapolate the information to the wider society and relationships. As of 2010, whites, on average, were the least likely to marry outside of their race. Less than 10% of whites intermarry, while Hispanics, blacks, and Asians are all 2 to 3 times more likely to intermarry. A study of over 2 million online dating interactions revealed distinct racial preferences between groups. White women responded most frequently to white men and least frequently to black men. In light of this data, it is all the more bizarre that the combination of a white woman with a black man is seen so frequently in advertising.
So we're going to leave it there. If you guys want to watch the rest of this, go find it. It's just search interracial commercials and you'll see it pop up. And so, we see it all over the place. Every commercial has this, but even here as a African-American man talking about his frustration with it as well.
And look, let's be real about it. And I'm sure you've seen it because everybody I talk to sees this. We cannot turn on the television. You will not turn on the TV. And I don't care if it's a commercial. You can't even go on a bus and see 2 people of the same race together.
Yeah, it's all interracial couples. It's usually like black men, white women they show, or like Asian, white.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, that's the perspective that most white people hear. But you want me to tell you what's interesting?
You see it totally different?
I'm gonna tell you totally. I'm gonna tell you why though. It took me a long time to figure this out. All the white guys were saying there's always a black guy with a white woman. All I see is black women with white guys. Every TV show, every place. And I started realizing. Then something hit me. I said, wait a minute. When they do commercials, they do them regional. I said, oh, so when they're in white areas, they want to tick the white guys off because the men are the aggressive ones to make racial hatred. So they show you us with y'all. I don't see those commercials. I'm in the inner city black area, and all I see is white men with our women. So that makes me hostile because I'm a man. I said, I see what they're doing.
That's insane.
And look, let's be real.
So you can see that this is a coordinated effort, clearly, in regards to playing off racial tensions in America. This was an interesting one that I found of a Heineken commercial, which is kind of on the nose. And you see well, I'll just describe this. This was posted by an African-American who was kind of upset with the commercial. This is older. This is from 2018. Watch this Heineken commercial where a fair-skinned bartender slides a beer past 3 dark-skinned black folks, 2 women, 1 man, to a racially ambiguous fair-skinned woman. And then the drink reaches its desired destination, and the words, "sometimes lighter is better," pops out. It does. I mean, this one's kind of on the nose. I thought that was funny. Yeah, Heineken does kind of suck. But anyways, so moving on here, that's kind of gives you a cultural framework for the Sydney Sweeney stuff, right? In the commercial. Now I want to talk a little bit now about the Caitlin Clark phenomenon. Again, as the white girl who's the best player in the WNBA. You can see this was from last season, one of the Chicago Sky players, and I'm going to show you something. So just to show the animosity towards Caitlin Clark is not just rhetoric online. Again, a heterosexual. She's kind of progressive. I don't know her politics. She sounds like she's kind of a progressive and trying to fit in with the culture she's in, but she grew up Catholic. She is heterosexual and she is white. But if you just look at, so there was a big article in the Wall Street Journal by a guy. I heard him speak. He may be a homosexual. I'm not sure. But anyway, he's a huge Caitlin Clark fan. And he was making the case that the government should get involved for a hostile workplace for Caitlin Clark, because when he began to analyze flagrant fouls, like excessive fouls, a flagrant foul is a foul when you're not going after the basketball. So you can foul someone hard if you're trying to make a play on the basketball. But if you're just trying to foul somebody and they don't have the ball, or you're not making a play on the ball, that could be deemed a flagrant foul. 2 of those, you get kicked out of the game. And just looking at flagrant fouls in the year of 2024, 17% were just committed against Caitlin Clark, and 80% were committed by the single team, the Chicago Sky, which Angel Reese, if you guys aren't familiar, Angel Reese. So during college, Angel Reese was a player for LSU. She's a black girl, and she kind of presents herself almost as like an OnlyFans sort of sexualized idol. She has her own podcast. She's always posting like very scandalous photos of herself. Many people think that she's going to do OnlyFans, but she was considered to be the best player in girls college basketball. Caitlin Clark was clearly the best player. And during Caitlin's sophomore season, they lost the national championship to LSU. And Angel Reese was very, let's just say she was a poor sport in regards to winning, and was getting in Caitlin's face and all this different stuff. Well, I'm going to show you videos of how polarized the former WNBA players are, and how they're trying to make Angel Reese sound like she's this incredible basketball player. Let me see. I found like right here. So Angel Reese presents Player of the Year. Now, meanwhile, Caitlin Clark is revolutionizing women's sports. Viewership's gone up by like 630% since Caitlin Clark has been playing in the WNBA. Yet the black girl who absolutely despises her and her team and literally hates her, she gets Player of the Year. And I'm going to show you a highlight of Angel Reese. It's horrific. And she's notorious for being unable to like make layups. and she hits like the bottom of the rim or smashes it off the backboard. The ball never even touches the rim, but she's great at rebounding because she's a bigger girl. She's a taller girl, and she's very aggressive. And I will give her credit. She is great at rebounding the basketball. And so you look at the statistics. This is her team, the Chicago Sky. So she's presented with Player of the Year. And you go and look at her statistics. She must have got some really good scoring. She must be, really a all-around player, right? No, all of the statistics are about rebounds, offensive rebounds, defensive rebounds. Well, her offensive rebounds, half of them, I saw a video where somebody tracked her during a handful of games. Half of them are her own shots because she misses the layup so much. Then she gets her own rebound. Then she'll put it up and miss it again. And so, again, I'm just highlighting this sort of animosity. This was a clip. You see another Chicago Sky player just kind of throw Caitlin to the ground here. This is it's like Tarasi. I forget what her name is. She was considered to be like the best women's basketball player back in the day. She's a lesbian. She's a massive progressive, and she hates Caitlin Clark. And so when last summer during the Paris Olympics, to the surprise of everybody in the WNBA, she, as the captain of the team, did not pick Caitlin Clark to be on the WNBA, or not the WNBA, the U.S. women's basketball team. Even though, even as a rookie, she was one of the easily top 10 players in the league. You'd say top 5 players in the league. And so she's even recently come out about how WNBA needs to be paid more. Well, the WNBA has never made a profit. As I said, the WNBA as a product is not good. Watching a Caitlin Clark game, yeah, that's fairly interesting because she can shoot really deep threes. She shoots the ball really well. But as a product, the WNBA is terrible. And in regards to attendance, if the Indiana Fever are playing, then you see a massive rating in TV viewership and attendance at the games. If the Fever and Caitlin Clark are not playing, you see it dip again. And even with Caitlin Clark not playing, so she was not in the recent like All-Star game. I didn't watch it or anything. I was just reading articles. There was a massive viewer dip. And so it shows that people are watching the WNBA, not because of the WNBA and not because of all these other players, but because of this one particular white girl, which is infuriating to the rest of the league. This is one of these, Kelsey Plum's one of these progressive girls as well, that is always trying to throw shade at Caitlin Clark and stuff like that. So, anyways, and so this is Stephen A. Smith responding. So this is a black man who uses race quite a bit, right? And he's even responding to this Wall Street Journal article talking about a hostile workplace because of how poorly treated Caitlin Clark is. And we don't have to watch this video, but he's making the case that he hopes it doesn't go to Trump because the Wall Street Journal article, the man who wrote it, was claiming that this workplace violation needs to go up to the Trump administration, that the government will step in and like take care of Caitlin Clark. It's a terrible idea. It's a big government. I think the guy was a homosexual, so he thinks the government needs to solve this problem. And Stephen A. Smith is saying, he's not for it, but there's a point there. I mean, and again, he's very much of a racial, always talking about black race and black men and all this stuff. But he's saying there is something there to all the hate towards Caitlin Clark. And so this happened earlier this year. This is an instance in which a girl pokes her in the eye. And so she stops, grabs her eye, and then another girl comes and body checks her to the ground.
I mean, is that displacement? I think it is.
Oh, and Marina Mabry's going to get ejected. If the officials saw that, Marina Mabry is going to get ejected.
Well, they're going to go and look at it. Look at Mabry. She's got a scar on one side, a scratch on one side of her face, a scratch on the other side. It's not from the game today. I asked her about it. She's always in the mix. There's a lot of contact here. There's a scrape across the face. That's what Clark didn't like. And then Mabry came in with a...
And so that just gives you a little bit of flavor in regards to the hate and the animosity. So moving forward here, we already did the Sydney Sweeney commercial. So this is the girl, Sophie Cunningham, who plays for the Indiana Fever. And she is like again, you can see she's an attractive girl. She's a heterosexual. And apparently she used to be like a tomboy back in the day. And now she's like a WNBA player. And she's a very kind of traditionally feminine, good looking girl. But you can see this is the new Arby's commercial that she's sponsored. And again, you see a Christian cross. So she's like a Protestant Christian, blonde hair, blue eyes. And you see hot girls eat Arby's. Again, playing off the Sydney Sweeney phenomenon in the Sydney Sweeney commercial. And then you see that Sophie Cunningham, despite being the pretty girl, she's also gets into it with like other WNBA players. So that same night where I just showed you where Caitlin Clark got poked in the eye and then the girl comes and like body slams her. This was then what Sophie Cunningham did like at the next couple plays later.
Wilson had it knocked away. Good hands by Allen. And Sheldon comes up with the steal. Sheldon going coast to coast. And here we got another breakers here. Stacey Sheldon goes right after Sophie Cunningham. It was a hard foul, no question.
I'm blaming this all on the officials tonight. It is totally their responsibility. That's a hard foul. That's a flagrant foul. And if they had taken care of the business earlier, we wouldn't be in this situation right now.
So that's kind of in response to the fact that they did not kick that girl out that like body checked Caitlin Clark, knocked her to the ground. So you guys get the flavor. And the Sophie Cunningham, like she's kind of got into it with other girls multiple times. And again, pretty girl, blonde hair, blue eyes. You can see the sort of racial tensions behind all this stuff. Here's a clip of Angel Reese, guys. We may watch this a couple times. This is who is being touted as like the best, the best female basketball player. And she, again, she's very, very jealous and upset about the attention that Caitlin Clark gets. But you kind of watch this video. You see whoever made this Angel Reese edit is dead wrong. Watch this.
Yeah, the reason why we watching women's basketball is not just because of one person. It's because of me too, and I want y'all to realize that.
Well, again, no Brianna Stewart today. Chicago's long pass, perfect to Reese. Over on Kennedy Carter.
Who's the best player in the country?
To the media or me? I feel like I'm the best player in the country.
Y'all make $1,400 a week. I make $1,400 in 7 days.
That's the same thing.
Reese, short. Reese, spinning, but couldn't get the floater to go. Angel Reese, inside, Cardozo, and Reese.
So you can see, I mean, that is when you watch her play, it's atrocious. But anyways, I thought that was super funny. And so she kind of presents herself like this is what the stuff she does. So she presents herself as like some sexual item. She's also heterosexual. And a lot of people think she's going to be like some OnlyFans chick. Here's again, in regards to the presence of the exciting whites. Here's Mac McClung, who is actually the 3-time reigning NBA. So you see exciting whites, NBA dunk champion. And so just you get a feel for like, again, the dunk contest is historically a black man phenomenon. And so the fact that this is the first time it's ever happened that a white man has won 3 times in a row, I think is the only person that who's ever three-peated a dunk contest. But you see, white guy, he's not covered in tattoos, kind of has a different aesthetic. Here, let me put in Mac McClung dunk. And so I think that's the one we just. Oh, here's all of them. So you see, incredibly athletic white guy.
My name is Matt. He said, I'm here. Wow. He said, I'm here. Yeah. On the back. It's McClung. Yep. Oh, man. Come on, bro. Come on, bro.
I guess you just have tattoos.
Let's just see what, you know what we should do? What? We should just have McClung do 5 dunks, and then we call it a wrap. And we leave. We just do 5 dunks. Nobody else shows up. We put music to it. We got, two of my favorite artists over here. We got her and Sheila E. Let them sing in the background. Anything else, right? You all be. I think he's going to put it behind his back. First time. Because we couldn't see it, but he does. You know what he did? He hit the front of the rim. He jumps up and hits the front of the rim. When you see it in slow motion, folks, you're going to like it. Well, you know, I got dumb eyes. I see that. You know Vince is going to see this. He's eagle eyes. What? Get to here. Hits the front look at his eyes. Look at his head. That's for concentration. Boom. Yeah, that's over. Yep. Good night. Good night. Good night. Where's Steph Curry? Where do you need him? Where's Night Night? The party.
So again, what's the point of me showing you this? The point is to talk about the presence of these white athletes dominating his, traditionally black aspects of American sports and American professional sports. So here we see the white guy is actually the 3-time reigning dunk champion for the NBA. Here I want to show you the other ad. Sorry, some of this stuff's out of, again, me doing research. I didn't have everything lined up. Here is the new Dunkin' Donuts commercial, which features a white man and makes reference again to genetics here. And so you see this, oh boy, libs are about to lose their minds again. Dunkin' Donuts just dropped a new ad with Gavin. I don't even know who this guy is. Casalegno? No idea who this guy is. Whatever you do not share it because you'll trigger a full-blown liberal meltdown. Okay, why is liberals upset with this? Because, again, he references his white genetics, just like the Sydney Sweeney ad.
Look, I didn't ask to be the king of summer. It just kind of happened. This tan? Genetics. I just got my color analysis back. Guess what? Golden summer. Literally. I can't help it. Every time I drink a Dunkin' Golden Hour refresher, it's like the sun just finds me. So if sipping these refreshers makes me the king of summer, guilty as charged.
Okay, so you see kind of a corny ad, but again, reference to his genetics has caused, people responding to this as, oh, this is another Nazi dog whistle. This is another, thread of the eugenics narrative of white supremacy. And it's like, what? Casalegno. Okay. I'm glad that some of you guys know him. I have no idea who this guy is, but yeah, exactly. Oh my God. He's wearing all white too. Oh my God. And he said he's the king of summer. Oh my gosh. He's the king of white boy summer. So, oh my God, he has a Hitler mustache. Oh yeah. So again, it's just funny how these things are playing in culture, and again with the larger narrative of the presence of all these white people in sports. So here you can see this is this is kind of cringy, but again it plays into my larger thesis about the recentering of white identity that's occurring. And what I'm calling the post-multiculturalist fatigue of American society. And that because of the brokenness of the sacred canopy in American identity, whether it be country music and the CMT Music Awards being now the biggest music awards, country music being now the biggest music genre in America, we're seeing a sort of recentering of the Americana ethos, which is inherently tied with the European identity of the historical American. And so, I don't want to play too much of these. You guys get it. But I just wanted to show you how many views and how popular all of these videos are different sororities. And notice the composition of the girls in them, right? Because this has not gone unnoticed by progressives and other people seeing this sort of viral trend. I'm going to play a couple, but I'm actually kind of afraid because I think the music may get me, it may trigger the algo. But I'm just going to play a couple. Again, it's very cringy for me. I couldn't imagine. Now I'm a man, so I don't do TikTok dances. It's very cringy. It's very like Gen X themed, but I just want to show you the viralness. I mean, like this one right here has 640.7 thousand views.
Because if looks could kill, we wouldn't want to be Dan Humphrey.
Again, it's very, very cringy. But notice, again, it's all white girls. And I would assume mostly upper middle class white girls that are getting, paid to go to, their parents are paying for their college and stuff like this. This has 200,000 views. And this one in particular, again, we're not going to watch all this stuff. I find it incredibly cringy and don't like watching it. But you see that they're wearing jean shorts. So this one was being called out as another racist dog whistle because, again, the Sydney Sweeney ad regarding the good genetics, good genes, and that these girls are then playing country music and wearing jean shorts. Therefore, it must be all equate to the same thing. But you'll see that, this is a very common trend in a lot of these videos where it's almost all white girls. They're doing these coordinated dances, and a lot of the time they're playing country music. And so you go and look at these, look at the comments. This one right here, the real quack daddy, it looks like a Hispanic guy. It's just so white. They all hate each other. Andrew Villa says, my jeans are blue. He looks very inclusive and welcoming, says Kayla. $14.99 a month. So she's marketing her OnlyFans. She has her OnlyFans price in her handle. Oh God. So she's doing great marketing here. Looks very inclusive and welcoming. ... I know who their parents voted for. So you can see how all these sorority videos, the people who are viewing them purely in racial context. Some of these, like this one was a real popular one. It has 102,000, but it was going viral on X. It had like over 2 million impressions. Again, not going to play the whole thing. Again, very cringy, but notice again the composition of the sorority. And this is at the University of Texas, clearly. So very interesting phenomenon. And then you have people like the feminist Megyn Kelly speaking about this trend. Again, we're talking hundreds and hundreds of thousands of views, millions of views regarding these kind of dumb dances. I mean, it's very cringy, but here's what Megyn Kelly has to say about it.
By the way, that sorority trend is all over X and TikTok right now. And it's all these sororities, mostly at these SEC schools, recruiting. It's like Pledge Week, Rush Week, whatever.
And okay, so she says SEC schools. So those are the Southeastern Conference. So those of you who don't know, those are like universities in the South, everything from Texas to Ole Miss to Mississippi State to Alabama, Tennessee. So it's kind of that Southern collection of universities, and the SEC is noted for like their football programs and stuff like that. But there is, there's a common motif at some of the SEC schools that within the Greek life, it's very, very white. And so be it. I'm not trying to make a preference here, but that's why she's noting, and mostly at these SEC schools because of the composition of the sororities.
Whatever. I have a dear friend whose daughter actually happens to be at Clemson. She's not in Tri-Delt, but she's in a different sorority, and they go back early and they put on Rush and they recruit. And what you see coming out of these girls is these amazing recruiting videos and efforts trying to say it's fun to be a young woman. It's fun here. Come join our sorority. Yes, some of them are over the top with like their material values. There's an article in the New York Post.
Again, I find it very cringy, but she's saying, look, this is just girls saying, you know, look, we like to have fun. We're a fun sorority. Yes, but implicitly within all of these videos, also it's saying that in a sense, we're kind of proud to be white girls. This is white girl culture. This is a group of white girls. You want to join us? You know, we're friendly. We're fun. Look at us. We do all the hip hop dances and we do country dances and we have matching cowgirl boots. So there, again, I'm actually, and that's kind of the interesting thing about my take today is I'm actually validating both sides, but looking at a larger perspective and say, this really is the leading edge of a culture war. Although it doesn't necessarily present itself that way. But really, this is about, as I've been claiming, and this is my general thesis for today, both as we're getting ready to go through all these professional athletes, this is a recentering of white identity, which includes, especially in the professional athlete context, excellent physical excellence in predominantly Black spaces. And I think for some people, they do find that inherently threatening.
About it, not at Clemson, but at some universities, they go so far you have to have like a Cartier watch or okay, no one's condoning that. But the vast, vast majority of these videos are young women who are loving being young, smart, and beautiful. And it's awesome. Like people online are trying to attribute the jean shorts to this Sydney Sweeney ad. I think you've gone too far, people. All right. This is the kind of thing that requires court.
Actually, I don't think they've gone too far, Megan. I think that the Sydney Sweeney ad really is undergirding all of this stuff. Now, I agree. Are these girls conscious? Like, this is one of the only Black girls, you can see her right here, that I actually, or at least somewhat colored. I don't know what her ethnic background is. In these videos, they're almost always predominantly white and many predominantly white blonde girls with blue eyes. And I think, yes, Megan, I get your point. These girls are just trying to have fun. They're just trying to get more girls to sign up their sororities. But what really is undergirding all this stuff is the Sydney Sweeney ad and what that actually represents in regards to the consciousness of white Americans. I think it is deeper than just that, Megan.
Choreography weeks in advance. I'm sure they had their outfits ready and jean shorts were a thing before Sydney Sweeney. I do not think this is a Sydney Sweeney thing, as happy as I am about her ad. I think this is a young women of America are happy to lean back into being hot. And
which young women, Megan? Which young women are leaning back into being hot and being proud about who they are? Who is it, Megan? Because again, it's like even the conservative commentators, and I get it, they keep playing, you know, oh, I can't believe they're blowing out the Sydney Sweeney ad or the Dunkin' Donuts commercial ad or these sorority dance videos. Well, it's like you're missing a larger important point that is actually needs to be recognized here. You know, one of the things that we discussed in one of our think tanks is talking about, and I've mentioned this publicly in regards to various streams, that the difference in the American context compared to Europe is it's very hard to make the case that America is only for like European descendants, where you can make a very strong case that Germany should only be for ethnic German people because they have a historical lineage there. And in the American context, I talked about this with Jose in one of the open panels, is that America's always had the presence of Hispanics because the Spanish Empire, before the Louisiana Purchase, the French, which is still present in like Montreal and Quebec. And of course, slaves. And so unlike the European context, which they're being inundated with, you know, Muslim immigrants, in the American context, we have always been inherently multicultural. And so what is it then that America, to preserve whatever this Freemasonic Enlightenment project is, and trust me, if anybody's listening for the first time, I've done lots of critiques of democracy and the American political establishment, even American history and some of the presuppositions of the founding. But one of the things that has to be said, that if any sort of national coherency is going to take place moving forward, there has to be a recognition of what this experiment actually is. And deep down, now I'm an Orthodox Christian, but deep down, if we're actually going to recognize what that is, it's a white, Western Christian dominant cultural narrative and nation, right? So the history, the iconic figures, and that the only way I see America, and I don't think this is going to happen. So I think long-term America is pretty much doomed, and it's going to balkanize and bifurcate, and that people are going to live in, and it's going to become more segregated is what I predict moving forward. And just like the black man that was talking about how he gets different commercials being in the inner city in a predominantly black area, he gets commercials with white men with black women, where me in a predominantly white area, I get all these commercials with black men with white women, so that it antagonizes and infuriates black men and white men, so that they have racial animosity towards each other. And I don't think that that's going to necessarily reside moving forward, unless there was a recognition amongst all the immigrants who come here. In fact, and we'd have to deport everybody, right? For my utopian scenario to actually take place, we would need to deport a vast majority of people. And then we would have to have a sort of national reckoning that if you're Indian and you're here legally, this nation is not a Hindu nation. This nation does not promote Hinduism. The national holidays will never recognize Hinduism. If you're, whatever religious or cultural background you come from, there would have to be some explicit recognition that for the American experiment to continue, which is why they're all flooding this country and trying to get on welfare and get all these services from the government, that thing, that gravy train, only perpetuates with a white majority America, because it's those people who have those values, that Americana, that cowboy country music vibe, that actually has formed the basis of whatever the American experiment is. Can we ever come to a recognition as a nation that about the importance of the European descendants that founded this nation? I doubt it. I don't think that's going to happen. And that's why I think bifurcation and exacerbating the racial tensions in America is part of what's going on here with these ads, and why the Sydney Sweeney thing is so inflammatory. And it really a green light for white people to say, you know what? I have great genetics too. I have blue eyes. I have good hair. You know what? I have good genetics. But again, and what does that follow? Again, when we're just talking about all the interracial ads, it means a sort of preservation of your group, a preservation of your people. And we already saw, based on that video, that white people are actually the most likely to preserve that homogeny, that white people are actually the less likely to marry interracially. So again, very interesting. Appalachian Yank says my third eye is brown. Good for you, brother. Good for you. Guys, if you want to support this stream, feel free to send in a super chat. I'd greatly appreciate that. Our goal today is 20 super chats. If you could help me, if you appreciate me coming out and actually making content about this topic. Obviously it's a bit of a risk, talking about race and being very explicit about some of the racial tensions, and talking about white identity in America is, it's a controversial topic. And so I'm taking a little bit of a risk to do this on YouTube. I may have to take this stream down after it's live. But if you appreciate my work, if you appreciate me try to put these topics together, please support my work and support my endeavors, spending time to put these streams together and try to curate all this content so that we can dive into it and have a good time together. So thank you all who have supported, and I truly appreciate it. Shout out to Wicked Wally. He says, look, if a random herd of white women are going to pop up and dance on my lawn, I'm less inclined to play modern country music than I already was. That's just because you're a black queen, Wicked Wally. I'm starting to pick up the racial sentiments behind this, Wally, and that this is because you're a black queen and you're threatened by all the sorority girl dances, and you hate country music because it's Americana. I get it. You're the perfect example of what I'm trying to express today in the stream, brother. So you keep being the proud, independent, strong black queen you are, and I will salute you from afar. Shout out to Wicked Wally. God bless you, bro. John 2828 Apologetics just became a COTEL crew member. Thank you so much, John. God bless you, brother. And Neon Arrakis throws 1832 throws in $10, says for the risk. Well, thank you very much, brother. And I do appreciate that. And I appreciate the recognition that, this is an edgy topic to be streaming about. And I'm probably glad I didn't label it the exciting whites and just went with white girl summer. I think white girl summer is a little bit innocuous. So anyways, let me just check Dono chat, make sure nobody sent anything in over there. Okay. Let's continue forward here. So this is Megyn Kelly's take. It's just nothing.
Together and free and unmasked in every way. By the way, that sorority trend.
These are just girls being unmasked and being proud of who they are. Here's some more if we wanted to look in some of the hate regarding Caitlin Clark. I think that we've already kind of hit that. But you can already see here at the top right, this black girl saying, Caitlin Clark is problematic. See, it's problematic. Why is she problematic? Oh, because she's a white girl who's the best player in the WNBA. Here's a little thing. Again, talking about this phenomenon that I'm highlighting to you guys. I'm not the only one recognizing this. And this is from a sports show called Bussin' with the Boys, who are actually picking up on the same thing. Now, I've highlighted, again, what I'm highlighting, best NBA player, Nikola Jokic, Serbian Orthodox, Serbian. Biggest trade in NBA history, Luka Doncic, Slovenian. Best two players in the MLB, Shohei Ohtani, who's Japanese, and Aaron Judge, who's biracial but was adopted at birth by white parents and is a conservative Methodist Christian who married his high school sweetheart. Obviously, Connor McDavid, best player in the NHL, best hockey player. And then the exciting whites in the NFL regarding all these white defensive backs. Here's the Bussin' with the Boys talking about the exciting whites are off to a hot start in 2025.
Who's this spicy white boy, Mac McClung, and he jumps over a car and dunks? Is this the best year for white athletes of all time right now? I mean, McClung having himself a day at the dunk competition. We got the exciting whites in the Super Bowl. One gets himself a pick six. Cooper DeJean.
USA Hockey?
USA Hockey, all whites. I mean, we might be on a generational run, boys. Let's not make it racial, but it's a big deal.
Biggest trade in NBA history.
Luka,
White guy.
white guy. NBA history, biggest trade, white guy. But a white guy. Garrett mumbles under his breath. Well, he doesn't have the microphone. He says European. I get it. I get it. But also white guy. That's a nice little deal, right? I'm not saying we're going to be on top forever, but it's nice to just be on the peak of something for a little bit. We're having a moment. We're going to have a moment.
So, and this is the interesting thing when we start talking about race as well, is do you categorize Nikola Jokic, the best player in the NBA, and Luka Doncic, the biggest trade in the NBA, Slovenian and Serbian? Are they white? And I would argue that this category of whiteness is a uniquely American phenomenon. Now, do Africans refer to Europeans as white? Probably. But this idea of a general, ambiguous white category is really an American phenomenon. And so when people come from Serbia and Slovenia to play in the NBA, they're sort of immersing themselves into this racial context in America, in which now they're just, you're not Serbian, you're not Slovenian, you're white. You're white. And that's what I mean about the Sydney Sweeney thing, is that it's not a recognition of, oh, I love my Anglo-Saxon genetics. It's really a recognition of this, really, I would say, a dubious category, because anybody who studied European history knows that no European viewed themselves as an ambiguous white category altogether. You had French, you had Germans, you have Russians. These are different groups. Yes, they're all Indo-European. They're of the same linguistic family tree and racial family tree, ethnic family tree, but they're different. They're unique. They've gone to war against each other. They killed millions of each other. And so it's really an American thing because of all the European descendants. And then with the growth of mass immigration and minority communities, specifically Hispanics, and then we have so many Indians in this country now. I mean, Indians are like one of the biggest demographic being shipped into the U.S. You have East Asians, specifically Chinese people and Koreans, that only in this country do we refer to European people as just white. But that's my general thesis here, is that what all this is doing is recentering whiteness as this ambiguous category as a category in which white people then can identify with and see themselves as cultural symbols in the United States, which has not been the case for the last 20 years after what I would call the diversity turn of the year 2000 to the year 2020. So something is happening, and it's happening, at a larger scale. This is an article to make my point, so that you don't think that I'm just making it up, that Nikola Jokic is the single best player in the NBA. This article is making the case he's the single best player ever based on statistics. Now, I'm not going to go through all these statistics. You guys can look it up, but this is a Serbian Orthodox Christian who is essentially the best player in the NBA, and they're making the case based on his statistical numbers. You could argue he is the greatest player of all time in the NBA, surpassing the statistics of Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, the other great white hope, Larry Bird, a Hoosier, by the way. Again, I told you Indiana pops up here multiple times. So I don't know, interesting stuff. And so, if you put in Jokic, again, Serbian professional basketball player, you go down to his personal life. Again, he's Serbian Orthodox Christian. And he lives with his two brothers and his then girlfriend. And he married his longtime girlfriend. So again, this is not a guy who's like whoring around with girls. He's not going to the strip club. He has two massive, massive brothers that go to all his games. See if I can find a photo of Jokic and his brothers. His brother looks like, he looks like somebody from a biker gang. Brothers. See how big these guys are. These are all Serbian. But the genetics in their family are unreal. Here, let's go back to X. If I put in this is bookmark. Let's go here. Let's go Jokic brothers. You'll see this dude is freaking massive, and the brothers have gotten into fights with people who who have said like bad stuff. You can see, look how big that dude is right down there, and that's his brother. So that's Jokic, the best NBA player. That's his Serbian brother right there, who's at every basketball game and he lives with. And the dude's also like 6'9". He's like 6'9", like 350. The dude is just ginormous. Like this, that's him watching his brother play basketball. And he's covered in tats head to toe. Oh, what's this, though? That looks like a Masonic compass and square on his knee. Oh, no. That's unfortunate. But anyways, there was a video of his brother. Like this is his brother at the game walking around. You can see that's a basketball player. Look how he's shorter than his brother. Look how big that dude is. So again, interesting that Jokic again is the best player in the NBA. This is again, we're going to be kind of done with the Caitlin Clark hate, but this is an article going over about how many people and professional athletes want to claim that she's not the best player. In fact, I did have a good video on Cheryl Swoops. So this is Cheryl Swoops, who is formerly considered the best WNBA player at one time, hating on Caitlin Clark and talking about how Angel Reese, the girl that I said shoots the ball in the bottom of the rim like every game that I've ever seen. I don't watch very often. How she's the best player in the league.
If Rookie of the Year was picked today, I give it to Angel. Will Caitlin Clark come into the WNBA and do what she's doing right now? Absolutely not. If you're going,
so did you see the stats at the bottom?
she's doing right now? Absolutely not. If you're going,
so
Clark coming to the WNBA.
So what it's highlighting is she's saying, oh yeah, well, Caitlin Clark, she can't do that in professional sports. The black girl, though, she'll be able to. And then you look at the percentage down here. Caitlin scores more, assists more, rebounds less, because that's what Angel Reese does. Field goal percentage higher, even though she shoots threes. Much higher 3-point percentage and much higher free throw percentage. So everything that she says in this video has actually proved factually wrong.
And do what she's doing right now. Absolutely not. If you're going to break a record, to me, if it's legitimate, you have to break that record in the same amount of time that player set it. Okay. So if Kelsey Plum set that record.
So now she's talking about the all-time scoring record in which Kelsey Plum, the white girl that I said like always hates on Caitlin Clark, she set it, and then Caitlin Clark broke it. In fact, Caitlin Clark scored more than Pete Maravich, who had the men's all-time scoring record. And she's claiming that Caitlin did it in 5 years. Well, she didn't, because she didn't play. She had the opportunity because of COVID to play another year of college basketball, and she did not. So Caitlin only played 4 seasons, the same as Plum. So the idea that she played an extra year, that's not true.
In 4 years. Mm-hmm. Well, Caitlin should have broke that record in 4 years. But because there's a coach.
And you see her T-shirt, it says female, fearless, and black.
Year, and then there's another year, you know what I mean? So she's already had an extra year to break that record. So
no, she did not.
It's truly a broken record. Yeah, that'll go in the record books as Caitlin Clark is the all-time, whatever it is. I don't even know what the number is, but that's the way it'll be. And I don't think it should be. Let's also talk about how much more experience that gives you over other players coming in, right? So people say, hey, like he or she's killing them, but you have a 25-year-old playing against a...
So she says Caitlin Clark is a 25-year-old playing against 21-year-old girls. Meanwhile, she's 22 years old in her first year in the WNBA. What are you talking about? She's 25 playing against 21-year-olds.
20-year-old. Mm-hmm. Like, you should be killing them. Because you've been doing it a lot longer than they have. Clark right now probably takes about 40 shots a game.
She says that she's a ball hog, shoots the ball 40 times per game, and here you can see her record of how many shots she actually takes per game. Only in her senior year in college did she take over 20, not even half of what Cheryl Swoops just said.
If Rookie of the Year was picked today.
So, again, just highlighting, and then I think this is part 2.
I thought it was a hard foul. Yep, I thought the refs got it right. It was. That's a flagrant foul.
So what this is about is Angel Reese was getting ready to go up for a layup. Caitlin Clark slaps her wrist trying to get at the ball so she can't shoot the ball. It's called a hard foul. You make sure that a person can't get an and one. And here's Cheryl Swoops saying that this is a flagrant. This is essentially racial hate by Caitlin Clark on the black girl, Angel Reese. And then the men are like, no, that's just a decent foul. What are you talking about?
Okay.
You don't think it's more of a flop?
No, I didn't think it was a flop. If you're not making a play on the ball, it's flagrant.
Come on.
That was a play on the ball, though.
She didn't go for the ball.
You're holding the hole.
She didn't go for the ball. She didn't go for the ball.
Sometimes give you an and one.
No, it's a hard foul.
Yeah, so it's not a flagrant.
But she didn't go for the ball.
Yes, she did.
I thought it.
So anyway, just highlighting again the black girl animosity towards Caitlin Clark. So we're not going to go through this article. That kind of hits it. I think today Fuentes is having a conversation. I don't know why this is up here with Andrew Tate. Here's Luka Doncic against Slovenian guy, biggest trade in NBA history, another white guy. Here is an article on the exciting whites. Again, Eagles rookie review. Cooper DeJean from Iowa, white boy from a small town in Iowa, is already one of, if not the best nickel defenders in the NFL. And it goes a little bit over Cooper DeJean. He was like a star basketball player, star football player, played for the University of Iowa. And it just kind of covers a few of his plays. And he got the interception in the Super Bowl and ran it back for a touchdown. And I think I had a few, maybe not. I thought I had some clips of him. Riley Moss, another guy from Iowa, born in Ankeny, Ohio. So that means 2 white boys from the state of Iowa were drafted as solo cornerbacks in the NFL. Again, as I told you, that hadn't happened in like 30 to 40 years. And we got 2 of them, both from Iowa. I mean, what are the chances of that? that the state, you know, when you think of Iowa, people think of corn and white people, but two boys and Caitlin Clark. So you have Caitlin Clark, Cooper DeJean, and Riley Moss, all from the state of Iowa, played for the University of Iowa, and all get drafted into the professional respective sports that they play. Again, Mac McClung, we already talked a little bit about him. This is Skip Bayless talking about how whites are shattering the stereotypes in professional sports, which again is getting to my point about the recentering of white identity in America and seeing professional athletes now as symbols within pop culture representing sort of white identity. We're just going to play a little bit of this and I'll move on.
This is what I'm seeing right now. This hit me late Saturday night after I watched Mac McClung win his third straight NBA dunk contest. Unbelievable. And I started thinking about what Caitlin Clark is doing in women's basketball and what Cooper Flagg is doing in men's college basketball and what Cooper DeJean is doing at cornerback in the National Football League. And by the way, what Brock Bowers is doing at wide receiver in the National Football League. These players are doing things white players haven't been able to do in a long, long time. Things I was skeptical about ever seeing white players do at all. But before I get to those specifics, please remember this. My favorite athlete when I was growing up was Muhammad Ali. I have constantly pointed out that black players in football and especially in basketball have consistently proven to be, for the last 50 odd years, generally better than white players. Generally better than white players over the last 50 years. Obviously, hasn't bothered me a bit that the NBA I have fanatically loved for about 50 odd years has been as high as 80% black players. Hey, if black players are the best players, I just wanted to see them play. I certainly never needed equal representation for white American players. And I dare you to find anybody who loves the NBA more than I have for the past half century. I dare you. Never bothered me that back in the days I read my Twitter responses back when it was still Twitter. This is 2009 and 10. I was often called an in lover. You know what I'm talking about. Now, the black woman who pretty much raised me, taught me everything I know about life, that was Katie Bell Henderson back in my days. Oklahoma City. She drove home this point to me from the start that we're all just pieces of God in different colors, shapes, sizes.
Okay.
And
So he goes incredibly out of his way to make it clear that he's not racist for noticing that whites are dramatically excelling more compared to the historic statistical average in American professional sports. Again, he really wants to shy away from being, grouped in. And this is a Skip Bayless who claims to be best friends with Lil Wayne. He likes to wear chains and his Jordans, and he went from like a very professional looking, businessman to now he kind of presents himself. He got fired recently from Fox Sports, but he presents himself kind of like, I'm cool with the blacks. I got my cross on. He's got like a chain he wears outside his shirt now. And he wears all his Jordan stuff, and he's acting like, yeah, I just went to the Lil Wayne concert. It's like, bro, you're like 70 years old, man. Just give it up. give it up. We get it. Just be yourself, okay? We get it. George by Jordan. But he goes out of his way to make sure, like, I'm not racist or anything, but these white athletes are really onto something here.
Wesley Snipes is these street ball hustlers. I guess Woody's character could jump a little, the white guy, but I grew up hearing that white men can't jump. Now, no coach ever said that to me or to a team I played for, but my friends and I just accepted that the black kids we played against were just a little more athletic, just able to leap better than we could leap. even though I was at 5'11", I was the 6th or 7th man. I did start 3 games for a high school team that did make it all the way to the state finals. Lost.
Wow. Woo! Nice
But
job,
when I
Stan.
was 18 years old at 5 feet 11 inches tall, I could not imagine. I could have never imagined seeing a 6-foot white kid leap the way Mac McClung can just jump through the roof of the gym. I mean, the last great American white player, the last superstar white American player was Larry Bird. This is a long time ago. When did he retire? 1993. The quote unquote hick from French Lick
Indiana.
couldn't jump
Woo!
a lick. He was 6 feet 9 inches. He could score with the
Okay.
greatest of them. He could.
So you kind of get the vibe there. And then this is one a little bit on the Caitlin Clark hate. And, you know, this is again, the response by this guy right here is a former NFL linebacker. And again, always playing on the racial narrative. And this is him trying to address the presence of all these white athletes, you know, growing in number in the NFL.
Y'all
Easy now.
are the minorities of football.
Okay. Yep.
Agreed.
Fair enough.
We're aligned there. Y'all shouldn't have made it.
Also agree.
You outran a couple black dudes to be where you are today.
Earned every
You
moment.
worked hard.
What the heck is going on with my internet? Hold on. Let me switch it real quick. Come on, internet.
Y'all
Easy now.
are the minorities of football.
Okay. Yep.
Agreed.
Fair enough.
We're aligned there. Y'all shouldn't have made it.
Also agree.
You outran a couple black dudes to be where you are today.
Earned every
You
moment.
worked hard to do it, but it's switched.
I'm excited to see you land this plane.
Mm-hmm.
It's switched from what the society is where the head start of life for the less melaninins. Sports are different.
And I wanted to show you that based on how articulate that man is to describe the presence of white people in the NFL. And I think he's trying to make the case that it's almost like a DEI hire because they're minorities, and that because they're historically underrepresented in football, that now it's almost like DEI in reverse, which is absolutely not the case. Victor throws in $10, says, DPH, how would you categorize Mexicans? I live in Orange County, California. When I look at the majority of the Mexican families in the Southwest, they are practically the same in values to white families. I would say that most of them are probably Catholic. That's where they get their family values from. But depending on, what kind of Mexican are you? And the war from the movie the meme from the movie Civil War where the guy has the rifle on his shoulder. You're like, what kind of American are you? Well, you have to ask, what kind of Mexican are they? Are they more of the Spanish descent where they look like European? Or are they more of the, the native descent of the people, the local and indigenous to those areas? It depends on which kind of Mexican they are. I would argue I categorize Mexicans as Mexicans. And then within that category, it differentiates amongst some of the racial denominators, but I would agree that many of the Mexican families who are still traditionally Catholic hold Christian values. If they're not here legally, I still think they should go. I mean, if they didn't commit a crime at all, besides the crime of coming illegally, and maybe they're here for 20 years, I still think they need to go because the country needs a reset. And I think that's part of what's happening. We're again within this white girl summer narrative and all these white professional athletes. There's a sort of reset that's happening. There's an identity reset that's occurring, and deportations and the recognition of what it means to be American. This is all underpinning all this stuff, and the genetic undertones of phenotypes and attractiveness. This is all part of it. So thank you very much, Victor. Really appreciate that. Garrett throws in 5, says, look, let's be honest. Hail Christ. Absolutely. My allegiance is to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, first and foremost. So that's absolutely the case. All right. Let's see. Next thing we got, Christian McCaffrey, arguably one of the best running backs in the NFL, is also a white Christian. So you go to his personal life. He's very explicit about his faith. He's married to, he is a Catholic. So McCaffrey is Catholic. He said, my faith is very important to me, and that's why I'm praying all the time. When you have a bunch of people chanting your name, it's important that you give the honor and glory back to the person, God, that's allowing me to do this. McCaffrey is a lifelong a fan of Bruce Lee, having been introduced to Lee's films by his father and crediting Lee's philosophy with helping him mentally throughout his career. So I only bring this up just because it's another presence of an incredible white athlete. He got traded to the San Francisco 49ers a couple seasons ago and had an incredible season. He recently just got hurt. He's trying to fight back. But before that, I mean, arguably one of, if not the best running back in the NFL. Another white guy, white Christian guy from Stanford. And his dad played in the NFL. He's from Castle Rock, Colorado. His dad played for the Denver Broncos. Here's an article again on Cooper DeJean and showing him and Reed Blankenship rocking the Exciting Whites t-shirt. So I was just showing you that. Attractive white women dominate WNBA draft and huge win for DEI. Now, this is a Washington Free Beacon, and they're trying to, again, they're being tongue-in-cheek and kind of playing off the fact that the WNBA is all pro-diversity, except when it comes to white girls, and shows that these were the top picks in the most recent WNBA draft. You notice a trend? They're all heterosexual, kind of feminine women, which, you know, in the WNBA is unique. Here's Sophie Cunningham from the Indiana Fever. But, yeah, that is unique in the WNBA because there's not very many white heterosexual women. As I said, over a third of the WNBA are lesbians. And so here's like Gary Owen, who's, you know, he's a famous comedian who's all about like black comedy. He's a white guy married to a black woman. Jokes that the NBA All-Star game needs to be all white versus all black format to boost interest. And I thought this is interesting because there's been talk about this in regards to the NFL and the NBA, this stereotype that blacks are better, they're physically superior and better at sports than white people are. And people have said, well, what if they separated like the All-Star team or the Pro Bowl teams based on race and decided like who actually is superior. And, you know, it's never going to happen, but I think it's an interesting conversation piece. And this is talking about Sydney Sweeney. And, you know, here's the highlight when Cooper DeJean, again, the white guy from Iowa, he actually got a pick 6 in the Super Bowl as a rookie.
Thing goes viral on the internet, especially.
But here's a quick little interview. I'm going to show you that, again, Cooper DeJean, he gets hit on by all these women. And again, he's a Christian. And he like ignores all. I'm going to show you that in just a second.
Do you get hype when your basketball footage gets released and goes viral on the internet, especially in the locker room?
It's pretty cool.
Now, this is the defensive back from Iowa that I was saying that is kind of making waves in the NFL.
When it grow on tree, can you show me where they grew that bit? You could have a fine girl.
So he could have played college basketball or football, and he chose football. This is very interesting of Cooper DeJean because it's showing again all these women that are like message him trying to get with him because he's now so famous and popular, and he just leaves all these girls on red. He didn't respond to my story. Just ignores all these girls. which I think is great. This is his pick 6 in the Super Bowl.
Looking, firing, intercepted, picked up by Cooper DeJean, gets a block. DeJean is in, touchdown.
So again, the point of this stream isn't to watch sports highlights per se, but just to talk about, again, this phenomenon. Here's arguably one of the best players in the MLB, Aaron Judge, again, biracial, but adopted by a white couple at birth. He was adopted the day after he was born by Patty and Wayne Judge, who both worked at Teachers in California. And he was brought up with white parents in a conservative manner. And so he's a outspoken Methodist, posted about his faith on Twitter. And he married his high school sweetheart. And they both attended college together at Fresno State University. Their first daughter was born January 2025 of this year. Why do I bring it up? Just because he's a notable star in the MLB, arguably next to Shohei Ohtani, probably the biggest star in the MLB, plays for the New York Yankees, is a massive home run hitter. A lot of people thought he was white. They didn't even know that he was biracial. But a conservative Christian, again, dominating respectively his professional sport. And then this is just talking about what are the biggest sports leagues in the NFL. Connor McDavid, the best hockey player in the world, white guy from Canada. Here's the number 1 NFL draft pick, Cooper Flagg, again, a white kid from Maine, Newport, Maine. And he just got drafted by the Dallas Mavericks overall. So what are we seeing? We're seeing this general trend over and over again of white athletes becoming stars in their respective sports. And I do think it's sort of a generational run because at least in my lifetime's limit, I'll be 36 this September 22nd. I can't remember a period in which white athletes dominated their respective sports to the level that they are right now. Again, NBA, NFL rising, MLB, NHL, WNBA, Sydney Sweeney ad, the sorority girl viral stuff. Like, again, my argument is that this stuff is something much deeper than what the most of the commentary on it. Most of the commentary is so myopic. It just focuses on one little piece of it. This just like Megyn Kelly's analysis of the sorority girl thing. This is much, much larger. This is a recentering of white identity in America. This is a celebration of white culture. This is a celebration of Americana in many regards. And I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon. And I even thought about, I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are. Is it like a sort of placebo effect? You know how there's the thing about people running a mile under, what was it, the 4-minute mile, and how once that was broken, then other people were able to break that record. And now it's commonplace that people can break that record. And I began to think, like, is there something that is like broken in the white psyche of America that just young white boys are now like, yeah, I can be an NFL cornerback. I can be the best player in the NBA. I can be the best MLB player. And I wonder if that's part of it. What are your guys' thoughts about why is it that white athletes are on a sort of generational run in American professional sports? You know, and we got a Serbian and a Slovenian dominating the NBA. Let's see. This guy says that's part of it, DPH, but you don't know that affirmative action also applied to athletic programs, right? I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it does. I would be, professional sports. I mean, there's a lot of money on the line. If you own a sports team, are you really willing to pay millions of dollars to athletes you think are inferior to other athletes just based on their race? I don't know. I'm not so sure about that. Kristen says athletics no longer care about keeping people out of the use performance enhancement. Okay. What is the ethnicity of the CEO of American Eagle? I have no idea. Let's look it up real quick. Who does own American Eagle? No. Let's see. Headquarters in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Okay. That's a very Italian Irish town. Steel workers. Key people. Aha. Oh, interesting. So Jay Schottenstein is an entrepreneur from Columbus, Ohio. He is the chairman and CEO of Schottenstein Stores Corporation, American Eagle Outfitters, and American Signature. Schottenstein was born in Columbus, Ohio, to a Jewish family, the son of Geraldine and Jerome Schottenstein. His father, uncles, and grandfather established Schottenstein Stores Corporation. Schottenstein graduated from Indiana University, Bloomington. Another Indiana connection today. So very interesting. Aha. Interesting. I was not aware of that. Let me check the dono chats real quick. Dono chat. Whitney Summers throws in 20. Thank you very much, Whitney. She says, keep up the great work, DPH. Well, thank you very much, Whitney. I'm sorry. It's Whitey Summers. I thought it said Whitney. Whitey Summers throws in 20. Thank you very much, Whitey Summers. I do appreciate that. That's a lovely name. Whitey Summers. Eric Vigilant throws in 5, says, officially an Orthodox catechumen today. Well, glory to God, Eric. That's excellent news, brother. Thank you, Doc, for showing me orthodoxy. You, Jay, Andrew, Jim Bob, God bless you, gentlemen. Well, thank you very much, Eric, for the support, brother. God bless you. And that's wonderful news. I'm excited to hear that. What are some of your guys' takes on my general thesis? Do you think that this American Eagle stuff, Caitlin Clark, the white athletes taking over, professional sports, do you think there's something bigger here? Or do you guys think I'm just overblowing it? I'm just using, academic verbiage and semantics to look at something that really isn't that big of a deal? What are your guys' thoughts? I'm just curious. It's American like the Federal Reserve. Austin says, it may be a small factor, but for the past 50-ish years, Black communities have put a lot of stock in athletics, the highest pursuits in their community being either a ball player or a rapper. It's true. That's true. I think rap culture, forgive me, I do not engross myself in a lot of the music scene, but it feels like rap hip-hop culture is kind of stagnant. It seems like, again, a lot of the energy is behind country music. As I said, it's now overtaken hip-hop as the number one music genre in America. I kind of see this as well. She says, the pendulum is swinging back. It's a reset. That's exactly what I said. It's a reset. Ortho Bro James says, white people are tired of being under the armpit of minorities, and something is being done about it. I don't even know if it's fully conscious by a lot of people, but I'll tell you what, the interracial stuff that I showed you in those commercials where it's always a black man and a white woman, I think that has done the most to jar open like racial awareness amongst the boomers. I've talked with a handful of boomers who are not like participating in the conversations on X that millennials and Gen Zers are. And yet just seeing the prevalence of these interracial couples on television, like what the heck? And I think just that has kind of opened up something. And the fact for the Caitlin Clark phenomenon, why is it that the heterosexual white girl from Iowa is the biggest draw ever in women's basketball? It's not like there hasn't been other good white women. What is it about Caitlin Clark? She has an exciting style of play, but I really do think it's because she's not huge, right? She's not like a big girl. She's heterosexual. She's Catholic, and she's from Iowa, and she set the all-time Division I scoring record in basketball, both men and women. I don't know. Nessie Fripple says, bro, whites are a worldwide minority. We need to stop giving them that. Giving them what exactly? Nasty Fripples. I'm not sure. He followed up and said, of course, in our own communities, we're supposed to be a majority. I don't know. Ortho Bro James says, with the black fatigue and the commercials, this may just be a domino in a potential civil war. I think it's certainly a domino in something. I speculate it's not going to be there's not going to be an easy resolution to the racial tensions that are occurring, but it's certainly a domino effect. And again, even with Schottenstein being the CEO of American Eagle, them doubling down on it. I mean, it's something, but is it? I could see, and I think whoever told me to go look up the CEO of American Eagle is probably getting at it. Just like the black man said about when in his black areas, the commercials have white men with black women. Is American Eagle, is Schottenstein actually trying to evoke more racial tension in America? That very much might be what the intention was, to drive controversy and clicks, which it did, and drive sales, which it did. But I think it's working, that it actually is sort of galvanizing white people in America. And I think that is a unique phenomenon that hasn't occurred in a while, especially, as I said, I think it's unique because of the last 20 to 24 years. My argument is that from 2000 to 2020, it was essentially what I called the DEI era, and that we've turned from the DEI era after 2020 with all like the anti-woke stuff. And I think this is sort of a natural consequence of all that. You can only tell whites they are garbage for so long before people start telling you to F off. You know, well, there's something true there. We were welcomed in all corners of the earth, allowed to do trade in the Jade Palace and govern our own price on the Silk Road. It's a pressure valve. In 10 years, we will all be less free. Maybe. I could see that as well. Shin Shavi says, miscegenation is going to, I think, be looked down upon culturally, and mixed people are tired of seeing it too. Interesting. Yeah, so I think there's something interesting here that's happening. And I think it's something to just kind of keep our eyes out for as Americans, and how all this is going to play out in the future. Derek says DEI is cancer, especially for pilots and aviation. Lots of hires due to people being Skittles and people of color rather than actually being qualified. I do know that. And I had a friend who he's a traffic controller in Indianapolis at the International Airport. And he was talking about the same thing, that they were going out of their way to hire minorities who were not qualifying for some of the exams that they needed to be an air traffic controller. And this was putting tons of stress on him and some of his fellow colleagues, because they were doing so much more work. Because I guess it's like a 2-year period. Like once you get hired, you have to go through training for like 1 year to 2 years for air traffic control. And because of their focus on minorities, they weren't getting people brought in at the rate that they needed to replace people who left. And so they were having to work double time. And he was a white Christian man, but he was saying, yeah, it's very prevalent in aviation, and that among air traffic controllers, there was an exert effort to make sure that minorities got positions, because it was a predominantly white male space. All brought us sans referendum via the legacy of the British East India Dutch. Okay. Didn't know if my last pilot was a dude or a woman. Not going to lie. I'm kind of scared to fly. Last time I flew, I had a white guy that flew us both times. And then the co-pilot was an Asian man. So I feel somewhat confident with an Asian man. Although you know how Asians are with driving, right? The stereotype. Anywho, let me just double check. Anybody have any more questions or comments? Feel free to send those in real quick. I need to do something to drive engagement, guys. I can't reach a freaking goal over here. You guys come over here. Jim Bob and my friends, they set a goal for like 50. You guys smash that in the matter of an hour or so. And I do streams. I can't get 20 people. I got to figure out what I'm doing wrong. I got to be more engaging or entertaining. I got to do something. DPH, please look up the percentage of non-whites that were hired for employment in the year of 2024. I did see that. I am aware. I feel safe with an airplane. Okay. I get you. TikTok invasion. I've never done a TikTok invasion. I probably should start doing more debates. It seems like that's where a lot of the cultural energy is. You guys love debates, and the engagement on those is really good. I got to figure out how to get more engagement on my streams. Compared to my friends, Jim Bob, Andrew, even Jay, I just don't drive the engagement on my channel. I got to figure out what I need to do that more. So anyways, guys, that's going to do it for today. Smash that like. I really appreciate you all being here, and thank you so much for everybody who supported my work and today's stream. I hope it was useful. I hope it kind of presented a new lens at what's kind of going on in regards to what's going on with American culture and kind of the sort of new conversation that's emerging around white identity. So anyways, I love you guys. Thank you so much for being here. God bless you all. And I will see you guys in the next one. I got some sponsored streams coming up that are going to be some good ones. One is diving into these channelers. Oh my gosh. I got a whole video on all these channelers talking about how Jesus was channeled to them, and he's Pleiadian. He's from the star. He's from the Sirius star system. All the different. It's going to be a fun one. So we're going to be doing channelers and Jesus, Baal and Moloch worship, a couple different Orthodox saints, some pretty good and interesting stuff. So I got some really good sponsored streams coming up. Brady Harvey says, you need to grift more, brother. Christ is king. I do need to grift more. I gotta figure out how to grift. But I do appreciate it. Brady Harvey, thanks very much for the support, brother. God bless you. And thank you, everybody who supports the stream and supports my work. I love you guys. And anybody who doesn't, it doesn't matter. You don't need to support me to be here. I do it to be of use. And I love you guys. And I truly wouldn't be able to do this without you and myself and my wife. Thank you guys for the support. So thank you guys so much. More content coming. Smash that like, and I will see you guys in the next one. Let me just double check, make sure nobody sent anything. I hate when I get off and somebody sent something. All right. As always, until the next one, God bless.